I'm glad that everyone's here. I'm glad that we can make this happen. Normally we do this in person, and unfortunately, due to COVID and all the restrictions going on, we're able to do this in person. So I'm glad that we could kind of work together with the museum as well as with the ERC Unlimited to make this happen, that we can still hold this in person. My father's been gone almost 12 and a half years now. So I think this might be the 12th annual. I'm not sure on the exact number of sessions or events that the museum has held. But I appreciate everyone being here, and see a lot of familiar faces from clubs in the area. We've got representatives from ERCU, Classic Thunder, RC Unlimited, ESU. I would say even UNW, they're no longer around, but we have some old members there. And I see people from around the world. I see some people from Canada. I see people from UK. So welcome everyone. Glad that people are able to join remotely. So thank you for being here. So a few things I'd like to mention before we truly get underway, and I'll talk about the agenda here in a minute, because we're going to be hearing from some other people. You won't just be hearing from me talk for 2 hours. But this is a museum event in conjunction with the ERCU, and I'll be putting a link in the chat. And I would really appreciate people to consider making a donation to the museum. This event is free to participate, but a suggested donation amount of $10 is really appreciated. And David Williams can tell you how much that means to the museum, and all the countless things that they're doing for hydroplane racing at all sizes, right? So this is an RC event they're doing today, but they do so many things for Unlimiteds and other classes as well. We also are going to have a best of scale voting. So there's actually 2 categories. We had 3, but no one submitted a photo for Wall of Shame. I guess no people didn't want to show off the boats that they wrecked. So we have 2 categories. There's a best of scale and a work in progress. And after I'm done with the agenda, I'll put the link in the chat. And I would really appreciate people voting on best of scale and work in progress on there. We're going to be giving away gift certificates to Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum, donated by David Williams, the Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum, and as well as ERCU. It was going to be $20 increments, but because there's only 2 categories now, we're going to give the number 1 and number 2 voting for best of scale and work in progress. We're going to give them $25 each, and I'll get in touch with you at the end for the winners to let them know who won. And voting will end at 1 p.m. on that, so we have an hour and a half to vote for it. But let's talk about the agenda and what's going to happen today. So again, this is brought to you by the Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum in conjunction with ERC Unlimited. We're going to start off by talking with the museum director, David Williams. He's got a welcome greeting for everyone and wants to thank everyone for being here. The chairman for ERC Unlimited after that will talk, Nelson Holmberg. He's here to give some updates and tell you about what's going on with ERC Unlimited. And then I'm going to give, wasn't quite sure what to call this, but I'm going to say a history lesson on my father, Roger Newton. I think I timed it out to be roughly around a half hour. So there's some different photos and videos I compiled. And I just want to give a little history lesson on my father. I know many of you here knew my father. Some of you weren't able to meet him, but there's just so much that he loved with hydroplane racing, and he did. So I just want to make sure his legacy is lived on, and people know how much of an impact he had with the models and with hydroplane racing. Then around 12:15, we're going to go into breakout rooms. And I know that might be scary for some of you because you haven't gone to breakout rooms on Zoom, but you'll have an option on which room to go into. And there'll be some different topics that will be discussed in those rooms. I'll be free to talk about those topics, but we're going to be focusing on there'll be room for nitro boats, there'll be room for gas boats, there'll be room to talk about electric motors, and there'll be room just to talk and catch up and talk with our friends and just talk about hydroplane racing in general. Then after the breakout rooms, we're going to come back together, and we have a keynote speaker today, Brian Buas. Brian is well known in the RC model community, really has a lot of NAMA records, knows how to set up a model boat. He's going to be talking about props today. He'll share some wisdom with us on that. He'll have some time after his talk to take questions. And then after that, I'm going to announce who the winners are at 1:15. I'll tell you who won best of scale and who won work in progress on those photos that were submitted. And then at 11:30, we're going to aim to be done with our event. I'll keep the Zoom session open till 2 so we can kind of hang out and have some social time at the end, for those of us who didn't get a chance to catch up during the event. So, all right, so I see some more people have joined us. We really appreciate you being here. So I want to say hello real quick. I see David Ramirez. Hello, what's up, David? Hello, Don Ma. Hello, Gary. I know there's a lot of other people here. I can't see all on my screen. There's so many names, but thank you all for being here. And I'm going to turn it over to David Williams so he can say hello to us all.
Well, thank you, David Newton. Give me a nod if you can hear me. I want to make sure that I'm unmuted. Perfect. So let me start with a little bit of background on the museum. One of the things that people have been reaching out to me over the last 10, 12 months is, how is the museum doing? Because we have kind of taken a low profile during the pandemic. We're actually in really good shape. We're set up very, very well going forward into 2021. We were able to kind of slip into a deep hibernation. We're closed to the public and have been closed to the public since early March of last year. And we were actually able to lower our cost by about 55%, which is extraordinary. At the same time, our revenue dropped by about 50%, but you'll notice the delta there. Our revenue did not drop as much as our costs dropped. So we've stayed healthy. We've got money in the bank and we're ready to go forward as soon as we get permission to go forward. So I'm not trying to tell you don't continue to support us, because it still is really important. You'd be surprised how far $10 goes towards keeping the museum open and the boats running. But we are healthy. We are going to survive. I'm really honored to be able to talk about Roger Newton. I consider Roger one of my first real friends in the hydro community. He and I met at Sandpoint in 1974. And if you knew Roger, he was gregarious, he was open, he was happy. And I learned two really important things from Roger that have helped kind of guide me through my entire career, both in racing and at the museum. The first thing, nothing really seemed to bother Roger very much. His life as a first responder, as a fireman, took him into some really harrowing situations. And I do remember one day where he just sat down and told me the worst of the worst that he'd experienced during his career. But after that, after experiencing those type of things on as a first responder, the little things about whether or not the paint is dried or the boat looks perfect or you get a second or a third or a DNF, none of that seemed to bother Roger. And he taught me to take a different perspective, to not get quite so tightly wound. I think anyone that knew Roger very well, relaxed is the word that might come to mind first when you think of Roger's approach to racing, to boat racing. He was here to have fun, and he was very relaxed. He was very good at it, but he didn't get nearly as tightly wound as a lot of folks. Sometimes that was frustrating for his boat owner. I know Ken Muscatel would kind of slam things around and say, "Damn it, I wish he'd get that boat done." But for Roger, if it wasn't life and death, it wasn't life and death. The other thing that was real important that I picked up from Roger, when I met him, he was a member of a fan club called Unlimited's Unanimous. Bob Williams, the original founder of the museum, was also a member of that fan club, and so was I. And we all thought of ourselves as fans and felt that there was a line, just like there would be with professional football, where there are football players, there's Pete Carroll and there's Russell Wilson and the professionals, and then there are us fans who just wear the jerseys and scream and yell. Roger showed me that hydroplane racing wasn't that way, that it was pretty easy to get involved with a team. Roger befriended Jim Lucero and started hanging around Lucero's shop. Before long, Lucero would give him tools and put him to work. And Roger also worked on the Budweiser and a number of different boats before he was a crew chief, when he was still just a boat fan, a boat geek like the rest of us. And that let me know that you could cross that line. You could switch from being a fan to a participant. And once you are a participant, that didn't mean you couldn't be a fan anymore either. Roger swung back and forth between fan and participant very easily. And it was inspirational. And sometimes when you hear people, if you go online or you just have a conversation, and people start complaining about the sport that we all love, saying, why is it this way and why isn't it that way? We can all get involved. We can change. We can change the sport. If Roger can go from being a hydro fan making RC models to being a crew chief on the boat that sets the world straightaway speed record, well, that's a path all of us can travel. So that was very inspirational for me. I am going to give I'm going to complain about my friend Roger because he really pissed me off. And this is also going to be a PSA for all of you on this call that are maybe over 60. Roger was working for us on the Go Fast Turn Left race team, running the U50, and I was driving the 48, and we were over there in Tri-Cities. And Roger, who was a first responder and had been to so many cardiac incidents, that he knew the symptoms of what was going on. He knew what a heart attack was. But he was a guy, just like all of us, and we were, too macho to admit, hey, I'm not feeling well. He didn't want to be a bother. He just kept telling me, I'm just going to sit down. I think I got too hot. I'm going to sit here in the shade. Well, damn it, if he had told me on Saturday what was going on, and we could have got him to the doctor on Saturday instead of Monday or Tuesday, we wouldn't be having this meeting as a memorial. He would be here leading the meeting. So all you guys, take that as a lesson. If you're not feeling good, don't be macho. Go to the doctor. It's not that big a thing to give up one afternoon of your racing to have the next 20 years with your friends. Love you, Roger. I miss you like the dickens. And David, I'm going to turn it back to you.
All right, thank you, David Williams. Thank you for those great words, and hope you can keep doing what you're doing at the museum. And that is a good message. I wish he would have listened to his own advice and followed those signs, and he was here leading this today instead of me. I wish he was here. All right, so I put the link in the chat for the donations. If you have some, can think about contributing to the museum, that I know that's greatly appreciated. But I'm going to turn this over to Nelson Holmberg now. He's got some news from E-RCU Unlimited. He's our chairman. So Nelson, you have the floor.
David, thanks so much. And thanks to everyone for being here today. We appreciate it. It is really cool that we every year have the opportunity to remember Roger. And before I start into my prepared comments, I just want to share a couple of quick stories. I want to thank David Williams for the comments that he made about Roger going from being just a fan to being a premier model builder and racer to being a crew chief on a real unlimited team, because Roger was the guy who gave me my first opportunity to be on a real unlimited team. When he was the crew chief for Ken Muscatel with the Silver Dollar Casinos Miss Rock in 2004, Roger called me and asked if I would be the PR guy for the team. And that was my first opportunity. So I did a couple of years with Muscatel's team. And then in 2012, Ted Porter called me and asked if I would be willing or be interested in being a part of the Graham Trucking team. And that was, it was quite an honor, and it gave me the opportunity to work on the skid fin and the wings for the Graham Trucking for the U5 for 4 years, which was awesome. It was best racing experience of my life. But I also wanted to share kind of a funny story about Roger, and that was that before I started racing electric boats, I was trying to race in ERCU with the nitros. And I had just built a model of the 2002 Alberto. It was brand new, showed up at the first race, took it out for some testing, and it died in the backstretch. And a guy came around the turn and didn't see the boat dead in the water and hit it and just blew up the whole left side of the boat. And I was frustrated and angry, and My boat was damaged pretty severely, and it was Saturday, testing day, and I just was like, screw it, I'm going home, I'm packing up, and my boat's damaged and everything else. Roger came over and he saw what I was doing in my pits to my boat, which was packing things up. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, my boat's busted. I'm going home. You know, I'm going to take things and just get out of here, go fix my boat." And he handed me a roll of duct tape and he said, "Nelly, bullshit." He said, "You came here to race, tape it up, let's go racing." And I just thought that's always stuck with me, you know. So anytime I have a frustrating time in the pits, or I have some damage on my boat or whatever, I pull out some duct tape or some radio box tape or whatever it is, and I put it back together temporarily and say, let's go racing. So I always remember that, and I always just want to say thanks to Roger for putting that racing spirit in me and giving me the opportunities that he did. So with that, I want to say good morning to everyone on behalf of Electric Radio Controlled Unlimiteds, or ERCU. I want to welcome you all to the event today, and thanks so much, really, to David Newton for all the work that he did to put this together. I know that it has been a labor of love for him, but I know it's been something that's been very time consuming. I also want to thank David Williams and the Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum for the support and for the fact that we do this celebration every year. And David Williams, thanks for sticking with us when we had to pivot to a virtual event, and being so helpful, and for your kind words earlier. ERCU today is a club of nearly 40 members who race 1/10 scale fast electric replicas of real unlimited hydroplanes. We were founded by Roger Newton in 2004, so we literally owe our existence to the Czar. We run a 10-race schedule with stops in Centralia, Longview, Lakewood, Marysville, and Lacey. We appreciate our sponsors, Pentair, American Pools, and Island Water Shapes. We also deeply appreciate all of the other clubs in the area who keep scale hydroplane racing relevant and exciting. And we really look forward to the opportunities that we have to not only race together, but to work together to further the hobby of scale hydroplane racing, no matter what scale it is. As a bit of an update, I'm proud to share with you that the state of ERCU is solid. We're experiencing significant growth this offseason, including new members who have previously raced in the District 8 ranks, and that's really exciting. We've updated our motor rule to be consistent with NAMBA's P-limited motors, and that gives us the opportunity to have a lot more motors available to our club members to choose from. We've also updated our bylaws, which had not changed since we were founded in 2004, to more appropriately involve members in the club's decision-making and appeals processes. It's truly now a grassroots effort, and no longer is all of the power centralized in the board of directors. During the pandemic last season, we were one of the only clubs in the country to conduct races. We were able to complete 5 races, or half of our season. We put together a compassionate and appropriate safe start plan that local jurisdictions felt comfortable allowing us to race, and they approved our requests to use their parks. Granted, our season had to be postponed a little bit, and we finished the season the weekend before Thanksgiving in a very cold and very wet day, Saturday in Centralia, where we celebrated the Seafair race. Our 2021 season schedule is now official, and it's posted on our website at ercu-hydros.com. And I see David posted the link to our schedule over in the chat, so you can find it there by linking to it. The season starts in just 36 days with the Champion Sparkplug Regatta on April 3rd in Centralia at Fort Borst Park. I'm also very excited to announce today that ERCU and Electric Scale Unlimiteds, or ESU, the 1/7 scale club, have agreed to a partnership that will bring the two clubs together to race at all ERCU events in 2021. And I want to thank specifically Craig Mullen and Ben Keller for all the work that they've done to make that happen on the ESU end. So thanks, guys. Stay tuned to our website and to our Facebook page for more really cool announcements about things we're working on as a club that will be debuting very soon. The idea is not only to make things more fun for everyone, involve all club members as much as possible, and to help us all go faster and be even better drivers than we already are. There's great reason for excitement in our club, and we invite you to take a closer look by looking at our website and our Facebook. I'll be available throughout the event today if you'd like to ask me questions in chat, or feel free to email the club at ercuhydros@gmail.com. Thank you all again, and enjoy the event today. David?
All right, thank you, Nelson, and thanks for all the work you're doing with ERC Unlimited. All right, I put the code or the link again in for the link for the schedule for ERCU. I'm going to put in the link as well one more time in the chat to vote for the submitted photos for our contest for best of scale and work in progress. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my father, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick because I don't think I shared the sound. I want to make sure the sound is working because there are a few clips on here that I want to share with us that I found online, thanks to Merv Soudin and Don Mock and others that had saved some video of my father. But all I can say is my father, he loved hydroplanes. He was born in 42 in the Seattle area. He grew up loving hydroplanes. He was one of those typical Seattle kids that towed a little boat behind his bike. When he heard the sound of the Allisons and the Merlins, he rode his bike down to the pits and Lake Washington and watched the hydros on the lake. Year round, he loved hydroplanes. He always talked about it. And if there was any sort of venue he could get into with hydroplanes, whether it was big, small models, real size lifeboats, he was doing it. He loved hydroplane racing. But I want to talk about the models first. But actually, let's have him talk about it a little bit. I think he can say it a little bit better than I can.
We're in Seattle, Washington, the home of unlimited hydroplane racing. Seattle is also home to two of the most competitive and experienced scale hydroplane clubs in the country, RC Unlimiteds and Unlimiteds Northwest. RC Unlimiteds was the first club of its kind to organize races specifically for 1/8 scale hydros. Founded by Roger J. Newton in 1976, the club now boasts nearly 100 members and features an 11-race circuit from May through September throughout Washington and Oregon.
This is a video done by Don and Kathy Mock back in the 80s, promoting RC Unlimited.
Considered to be the utmost authority on scale model unlimiteds, Roger Newton has designed over half of the models racing today, as well as being one of the sport's top drivers.
When I was a kid growing up, I started out running tether boats, and then I went into service after high school. When I got out in the mid-60s, I always thought it'd be nice to run a radio-controlled model hydro. And I was fortunate at that time they were coming out with the new style of radios that we run nowadays, which are called proportional. And the first boat that I built was a model of the Notre Dame, and I competed in the Seattle Model Yacht Club with that in the open 60 hydro class. Fortunate enough to win my first race I was in. So we got the idea germinated in our head that maybe we should separate from the open hydro class and run nothing but scales. And that's basically how it got started. In 1974, at our first race, I believe we had 15 hydros here. That ran in the Gold Cup on Green Lake. 1976 was our first year as a club. 1974 was the first year that the NAMBA organization themselves recognized that their first race was down in San Diego. And I believe they had about 15 hydros there. And since then, it's become the biggest class in organized model boating.
All right, so that was a little bit of his background with getting into models in the Seattle area there. But he just loved RC models. He started building models when he was after high school, and he didn't stop until the day he died. He just loved making RC hydroplanes. There's some pictures here I want to share that kind of show off some of the years that he did this. There's this black and white picture here, this old craft radio. He built the Country Boy in the early 70s. Not his first model, but one of his first models that were scale. He raced in the NAMBA district up here. And then this picture up here, he built an 1/8 scale slow motion 4. And this picture was actually taken, I believe it was 1974 at Green Lake at Nationals. And this is when they had the first heat of scale racing. And standing right next to him was the late Leonard Feedback, who just passed away about a month ago with his checkerboard barrel. And I know it was a really special day for my dad because it was kind of the first time that they got the scales together and kind of showed how impactful scale RC racing was. There's a picture of him later, my dad down racing down in San Diego. It was the early 90s with Leonard down in the Mission Bay area. My mother, she raced many years with my father. It's a picture of the early 90s with my dad's Bud and her Kai, and she loved the Kai. And one quick funny story I want to share about my mom is she grew up in the area too in Seattle. Loved hydroplanes as a girl, young girl growing up. And she loved the Kai. And her parents thought she was wasting her time with hydroplanes. She actually collected some Hawaii Kai stuff as a little girl in Seattle. And her mom convinced her to throw all that out because she will never marry a guy who likes hydroplanes. So I thought that was pretty funny because probably couldn't meet anyone that loved hydroplanes more than my dad. There's a picture here. My dad and I went down in San Diego and we raced in Mission Bay before they stopped racing scales down there in San Diego. I think this was 2006 or 2006 here. I won the event with my Pringles, and my dad got third with the form of the boats. And actually, one quick thing about that race, he painted that boat, the form of the boats. He didn't have graphics before we left the house. We got down to San Diego, and we had graphics waiting for us in the hotel lobby, printed by Mike McKnight, and we got the graphics put on the boat in the hotel room the night before the race, and he won best of scale for that. Down here is a picture of my dad with a slow motion 4 and the Monty Steers slow motion 5. Some of the original boats in RC Unlimiteds there. Another black and white photo of my dad, this Budweiser he made. And then up here, this is actually one of my dad's last race wins in RC Unlimiteds in the 90s. Back when RC Unlimiteds raced in Wenatchee, and as me as a little dorky kid there hanging out with them. And I loved going around the state, and it was fun with RC Unlimiteds back then because we raced in so many areas around Washington and Oregon and got to travel. So a lot of good memories there, and he won a box of apples there. All right, so Murph Stoughton actually came a few times and stayed with my father and myself, and he took this video in the late 1980s, and we've been in some shop tour videos, and so I thought this would be kind of fun to see a shop tour of my dad's shop in the late 80s. That was actually 1987, and this is still the house that I still live in, and I still work in the shop. And that's my dad there working on his Bubble Bud. See all those organized materials on the counter space there. There's my mom's Hawaii Kai up on the shelf. And I will say that drill press that's there and the bandsaw that was there in the earlier scene, I still use those today. Those were my grandfather's. And they just keep working.
Sounds like World War III.
Yeah, it does.
Someone left it with a semi-auto.
Work for John. And they would go out every day
Miss Budweiser.
and run a boat. And he was always testing things, and she was the gopher. And I guess he would buy Ross again.
Kind of a quick clip there, but so that was fun to kind of walk back in time to my father's shop, 1987. All right, so here's some more pictures of my father with models, and he built models of all different sizes. When we first started out with 8 scale, right? But he built a lot of 1/10 scale hydroplanes as well. The picture of, I believe this is my dad's last 10 scale he raced, the checkerboard Bardo. And this photo was actually taken for a newspaper down in Oregon. They did a little article about ERCU Unlimiteds about 15 years ago. My dad made a Miss Budweiser. Always had to have a Budweiser. And then this was taken down in Coulon when we used to be able to race down in Coulon with Classic Thunder in the 90s. This is Hawaii Kai. This is my father again with the checkerboard. The photo in the top center here is actually him back at his house when he was a kid. I believe he was just got back from Air Force, his tour in the Air Force, and was building one of his first scale boats there. And then he built a lot of models for limited owners as well. The same with Bernie Little. He actually made a prototype boat for a boat that was actually never built. I'm spacing on the designer's name here. I think Nolan. I think Bernie was thinking about buying a boat from Nolan. My father built a little mock-up display what it would look like, but he ended up going with the Griffin Bud instead. So pretty unique model there. But my father, he also created plans. He made plans for scale RC and the RC hydroplanes. And from that same RC Unlimited video that Don Mock produced, here's my father talking about his entry into making plans.
The boats, which are built on a scale of 1.5 inches equals 1 foot, are usually constructed either from wood or fiberglass or a combination of both. Although some wood kits are available, many modelers choose to scratch build their boats from plans. Designers like Roger Newton offer plans for models of famous Unlimiteds from back in the 1950s to the latest high-tech hydros racing today.
When I got into the model boats, there were no plans available. And I had a couple years of drafting when I was in high school, so I knew basically what it took to sit down and draw out a set of plans. And I was able to come up with some dimensions and a few smaller profiles of the bigger boats. So when this class started taking off, people around the United States and eventually the world wanted to get plans of the big boats. So I said, well, I can try it. And in 73 and 74, I started selling plans for the boats. And since then, I now have over 350 boats within my catalog available to people that want to buy. Plans sell for $35, and that's a full set of plans. There are 3 sheets available. 1 sheet showing the paint scheme, the cowling, what the final detail is supposed to look like on the boat. The second sheet is a 3-view layout showing where all the bulkheads and the stringers go. And the third sheet is all the bulkheads laid out. So all you have to do is trace the drawings for the bulkheads out on a piece of wood and cut it out, put it together.
Scratch building requires a fair amount of construction and woodworking skills, and many hours to build a competitive racing hull. A good alternative to scratch building is to buy a fiberglass boat. Glass hydros are usually purchased unpainted and require a few hours to mount the radio gear, engine and hardware, paint and detail. Jeff Hunter, who owns RC Sportscraft of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, builds fiberglass hulls of many past and present Unlimiteds. They're available for under $500. The bare hulls come complete with cowling and wings. Hunter's hulls are well built and have proven to be very competitive. Roger Newton also has designed many of Hunter's fiberglass hulls. He explains his bubble Miss Budweiser.
This is a model of the 1985-86 Miss Budweiser Griffin. And I had built the plug for this boat, and basically what a plug is, it's like a finished hull. You can build it up out of wood, fiberglass, foam, anything, just so that you have a nice, smooth, finished hull. And then whoever makes the fiberglass molds, well, they have something good to go by. And basically, when you order a fiberglass hull, it takes about 90% of the work out of your hands. And when you get a hull, you have a top and a bottom half usually joined with a cowling and tail fin supplied.
The hydro.
I had to let that little clip of the bubble pipe go in there. All right, so there's some more shots of my father and the other scales he built. He built him and Don Mock and Howard Price tried to start a gas scale class in the 90s. I think this is 1/6 scale, and it didn't quite take off. But this one's actually in the museum right now. There's my father here with I'm not sure if it was a 5th scale, but it was a pretty large size Hawaii Kai. And this is actually he built this with a Green Dragon model for Kid Valley, and they're still hanging up in Kid Valley down in Coulon and Renton. So if you go to that restaurant, you can see them hanging up there. My father, he built the Hawaii Kai. That was considered a classic thunderboat at the time. And we went down in 2007 and won the world championships with it. And on the way back, he went through Idaho and he stopped and said hello to Jack Regas and shared a moment with Jack with the trophy there. And this was, I believe this was actually my dad's last model he built, the Tempo 7, for part of the gas class that still racing right now, and still racing pretty strong. All right, so here's a quick clip I want to show in the mid 90s of tent scale racing, because we're talking ERCUs, you know, a contributor here. We didn't have ERCU back in 1995. We had Classic Thunder, but this was my dad's first tent scale model, and I want to share a moment of him at the lake with it. And that's, yes, that is me there. We're down in actually Shady Lake at Camelot's house.
Crane to the shanty. Crane to the shanty.
In the back in the 90s, they had brushed motors and NiCad batteries. It was a struggle to make 5 laps, but they were still fun. This video was taken by Merce Souden when he came up in '95 and visited. And then I have to talk about his days crewing. David Williams talked a little bit about my father kind of getting into the crewing world, working for Winston and a little bit for Budweiser, and a lot of years with Ken Muscatel. There's some photos of my dad throughout the years working on the different teams. He was crew chief in 2000 when they got the Free Eye sponsorship for Ken Muscatel, and that's probably one of the biggest accomplishments he had. He helped the team get set up and do the mile straightaway record in 2000 on Lake Washington, and they were able to get with Russ Wicks get that straightaway speed record. There's a photo of my dad working in the shop in the late 90s. I think this was before they got the Free Eye sponsorship. My father here at one of the races with Silver Dollar Casino when they were a sponsor. And I believe this was actually a photo of him when he was helping Jones out in the late 90s for a little bit as well. And he loved going to the races. And we have a clip here from, I forgot I had this, but this is from 1998 at Seafair. He got interviewed for one of the preliminary heats for Ken's team.
Let's talk about the Tweeden's RV boat. That's Ken Muscatel at the controls.
Ken had a good run in the first heat. As we said,
Hey, Steve.
I just thought it was a fun moment on the cameras from my father here. They're being interviewed for Seafair. But my dad also, he spent a lot of time at the museum as well. I don't know how he spent so much time doing all the things he did for hydroplane racing. Before I talk about this, my son's actually here. He wanted to say hi real quick. He wanted to say hi to everyone out there. You want to say hi? Look at here. Say hi.
Hi.
This is Dre. All right. You want to give a wave? Okay. All right. You just want to come and say hi. But my father, he helps restore a lot of boats that are still there at the museum. He was down there hanging out with David Williams a lot of evenings, and he loved his time down there. He always talked about the meals they would have there at volunteer nights, and he loved having movie nights down there, but he loved working on the boats. And there's a picture of him with Ted Jones at, I believe it was shortly after they we finished the Slow Motion 5. He actually got to drive that in Chelan. There's a picture of him. I'm not sure if it's before or after he got to drive that by himself. He took the Quasi-Kai out there as well in later years in Chelan. And this was, I believe, the last restoration he was a part of at the museum, was him standing on the bottom there of the Hurricane. There was still a long ways to go before that was finished. He unfortunately did not get to see that finished and run, but he spent a lot of time working on that. And Don Mock actually recently just found this footage that he got of my father when they were restoring the 1967 Miss Budweiser back in 1999. So let's spend a few minutes hear my dad talk about that restoration.
My name is Roger Newton, and welcome to the Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum. I'm the head project engineer on this restoration project. What you see is the 1967 Miss Budweiser. It was a temporary fill-in boat for Bernie Little in the year after they wrecked one of their boats. It won the Kelowna race in 1967. The boat actually started life in 1962 as a Notre Dame, and had several name changes over the years before and after the Budweiser. We brought the boat in the shop about the 5th of November. That's when we actually started working on it. And right now it's the middle to late of February. And we've done quite a bit of work. We tore the deck off, tore all the systems out of the boat that were left, turned the boat over, tore the sponsons off. And right now we're in the process of rebuilding the sponson. We just have the sport sponson just got finished today. Got all the aluminum on there. Basically what we had to do is replace about 3/4 of the aluminum frames are in the sponsons, all the wood, and so we bought new wood, new aluminum, and we're putting it back together. And I'll take you around the boat here and show you kind of what we've done. Took all the paint off the side of the boat. It's an all aluminum hull. It's an 1/8 inch aluminum bottom on it, over 1/4 inch square aluminum battens. The sides are aluminum, and all the frames in the boat are aluminum. 1/8 inch aluminum on the sponsons, over 1.5 inch square oak battens. We were able to save the bottom. It's not in that bad of a shape. Has a few pock marks where it was sitting on the trailer over the years. A few spots inside where the salt water got to it. The boys been working quite a bit. We had to replace about 8 feet of the keel on the back of the boat and cover that with some more aluminum. We're in the process of trying to get the strut lined up. We drilled the hole for the bottom the other night. And when we got the boat, there was no running hardware. We've had to borrow and beg and steal and find what we can for the running gear. We had no strut, no intermediate strut, no stuffing box. There's no motor mounts in the boat. So we'll have to fabricate those. And on the right sponson, we're getting ready to put some aluminum on that. Within another week, we'll have aluminum on that. And we'll finish that project so that we can turn the boat back over right side up and get working on the deck. We were buying an engine and gearbox from Dixon Smith. He bought some used equipment a few years ago, and he's rebuilding the motor, so it'll be almost like a brand new motor when we get finished with it. I would like to be in the water by June 1st. So with the crew that we have working here, we work Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and all day Saturdays. And we'll get 8, 9, 10 guys at a shot coming here. And a lot of the guys have never worked on a boat before, but I'm real pleased with all the help that we're getting. They're doing a very good job on the boat. All the frames of the boat are made out of 1/8 inch aluminum. And like I said earlier, we had to replace like 3/4 of them in the sponsons, but there was enough left for a good pattern. So we cut those out, and of course we had to replace all the oak in the sponsons. The new frames around the outside of the sponsons, and of course all new oak battens. It's coming together quite well. As far as the woodwork on the sponsons, we've been real lucky. There's an older fellow by the name of Walt Cook that he's never worked on a boat before, but he's a good woodworker. And he's the one that's been doing 90% of the woodwork on the sponsons. As far as getting everything bent and straight and the right angles and whatever, Walt's done a great job on it.
And this is down at the old museum in South Park. The current museum we have in Kent. All right, well, thanks for Don Mock for finding that footage and taking that footage back in '99. It was fun watching that. And before we go, I was trying to have a moment of silence for some other people who passed recently that were really big in RC hydroplanes. Harry Gatchin's passed away at the end of 2020, huge name with RC Unlimiteds. And Leonard Feedback just recently passed away, who was owner of Nostalgic Thunderbolt Unlimited pins and a big name for RC racing as well. So let's have a quick moment of silence for these two individuals. All right, we miss having Harry and Leonard around and my father. So we'll keep racing in their memories, I guess. Okay, well, thanks for listening to my history clip there. That was my teacher and me coming out and trying to give us a little glimpse back at what hydroplane racing meant to my father, and hopefully what my father meant to hydroplane racing as well. In the link, I'm going to put